Today is a very, very special day for the channel, and that's because I get to share something really amazing. I got this email a few days back offering me a quote exclusive interview with the management team for Palantir following their now then earnings release this past Thursday, and a time slot to ask questions for about 15 minutes. I was asked to agree that the meeting could not be recorded nor broadcasted, and that whomever I was speaking with would not be sharing non-public information, and that I could instead focus on asking qualitative questions about the company, business, and products, but not on any financial issues. So I was very excited and a little nervous to be given this offer, but I proceeded and asked who I would be speaking with. And the response was that I would be talking with none other than Shyam Sankar, the GOAT, Palantir's COO. So I subsequently asked my contact if Shyam was aware of my work or who was giving me this chance and allowing me to represent my subscribers on their behalf, ask questions, because I wasn't entirely sure who was allowing me to do this. So again, I'm not sharing any names with anyone inside the company. Anyways, I got a response that Shyam is aware, of course working across Palantir's IR and BD functions. So that's a little primer to how this whole thing got started, and over the next 3 videos, I'm going to be sharing the questions I asked and the answers I got. In this first video, I'm going to talk about Palantir's internal software, whether or not they're going to make the choice to adopt Bitcoin financially or as a product, and whether or not they can use their software to make material predictions about the future. Again, these are not questions that you will hear answered anywhere else, so it is very much exclusive in that regard. But true to their word, they did not disclose any material information that would impact the stock price. So no, I do not have any advantage, and nor do others that were speaking with management as they do routinely. But without further ado, I am very, very excited to share the rough conversation with you. Let's go. So in this video, I already told you the 3 questions I will be giving you the answers for. Tomorrow, I have another 3 questions that I got answered, and the following day, I will release a 3rd part with 2 more questions that I got answers for. So when I hopped on the call, Shyam explained that they were doing post Q2 earnings report callbacks, and they just got off the phone and were done speaking with Morgan Stanley and Citibank and others, and that actually David Glazer and Kevin Kawasaki were also on the call. So immediately, I thanked them very much for the opportunity and said how humbled I was. Told them I thought the earnings were amazing and the conference call was so powerful, and thanked them for putting retail investors at the forefront by accepting questions on Say Technologies and really being focused about how best to cater to retail investors, not just institutional ones. So this is not the direct order in which I asked the questions, and again I was asked not to record the meeting, so I just have rough notes on how it went, what they responded to. I had my questions written down ahead of time. So just kicking off with a quick question, something that I've never heard Palantir discussed before, and that was, does Palantir use Palantir, like using Foundry internally? Shyam responded by something along the lines of, you bet. We have both Gotham and Foundry, and by extension, Apollo running internally. We do our finances and operational planning with Foundry, and Foundry is a core part of actually delivering the continuous delivery of the software. And he even went on to say that Foundry helps run other foundries, mentioning that it's a bit meta in that regard. And then he said, as you can expect, we're using it for everything. So I thought that was an amazing response. Now, of course, we would expect they're using it internally, at least at some capacity, but he made it clear that this is not just for beta testing or testing the software. They are actually using it to scale their business. They're using it for finances. That is so bullish. They use it for operational planning, and of course, for the continuous delivery of their software, and for running other foundries. That is very interesting. And what I also loved about it is they're using Gotham internally. Now, traditionally, Foundry is the commercial product, but we have seen sometimes Gotham be used in a more commercial setting, and apparently Palantir is using it internally as well. They use all 3 of their main products, Foundry, Gotham, and Apollo. And what does that mean? Well, that means that they are the ones designing their products for a scaling business. They're the ones that are saying, this is what we need, this is what we need to develop, and this is how we need the software to behave when we ask it of something. And that is just such a great asset to have. When you use your own product, you see its flaws, you see its strengths, and you can rapidly iterate to enhance it. So that makes me even more confident in Palantir's ability to deliver software that is meaningful and that can truly help businesses do what they would otherwise not be able to do. Next up, I asked about adopting Bitcoin. I said on the Q1 call, we saw that Palantir indicated interest in potentially adopting Bitcoin in some capacity. I asked if they could speak to any updated commentary on that, and to take it a step further, if they could indicate any interest in using blockchain technology or the like in the financial space. Since there are just so many verticals, DeFi, smart contracts, insurance, it's obviously going to be such a huge market going forward. So I asked if they had any thoughts right now that they could share in that space. So David Glazer, CFO, chimed in. He said that they agree that it's definitely going to be a massive market going forward, and they're looking to see how Bitcoin can fit into the treasury strategy, or anywhere else really, because he's the one overseeing all of that. And he talked about more on a high level how they run the business and the company, and how he really has to think about defending against potential black swan events. And he said, and I'm very excited to share this because I was not aware of this, I haven't seen anyone else mention it. Now this is something you could have found out on your own, but David Glazer said if you look in the 10Q, you can actually see that we purchased a small amount of gold. He said we're seeing Palantir start to prepare for those things, just adopting alternative treasuries and such, as well as looking at other alternatives. So I thought that was very fascinating. It seems Palantir is very much forward-looking, but they want to take a more conservative approach to adopting alternative assets. And buying some gold, as you'll see, is actually, in my opinion, not such a bad idea as a first place to start. And if we do look at that 10Q, investment in gold, page 22, during August 2021, the company purchased about $51 million in 100-ounce gold bars. Such purchase will initially be kept in secure third-party facility located in the northeastern US, and the company is able to take possession of the gold bars stored at the facility at any time within reasonable notice. Definitely interesting to see that, and it was great to hear David Glazer's thoughts on, and really interest in, getting Bitcoin to fit in, or other digital currencies to fit into the treasury strategy, and it really does sound like they're going to use it in the future. But then Shyam also jumped in, and he spoke to my product question. He said they're having conversations in their pipeline with DeFi companies, blockchain companies, on more traditional use cases for big exchanges, for AML and KYC, compliance advantages, but also more non-traditional use cases even, where they're even more deeply integrating blockchain technology in what they're delivering to customers, especially customers operating across distributed value chains. So it was amazing to get Shyam's thoughts on the product side of things. It's clear that they would not simply adopt Bitcoin, let's say, on the balance sheet, and I know this is a hot topic, but it appears they would want to take it that step further, as I asked in my question. And this really is great to get an answer on. It doesn't seem like anything's happening immediately, but they have access to all of these companies in their pipeline that they can leverage partnerships with. They can say, how do you want our product to develop in the future? How can we benefit you with that? So that then they can multiply that advantage, multiply the feature set, and sell it to others. There really is just so much to expand on here. So I'll definitely be talking more about that in the future, but I do have one more question that I asked that I will be sharing today. And this is something that you guys have asked me before. Since Palantir is such a data aggregator, what are the legal implications of being in charge of so much data? We know that Palantir is very focused on privacy and civil liberties, but when Palantir has access to so much data and all of the webs of data coming together, where they could potentially reach conclusions about macroeconomic global activities or have enough insight to buy companies, invest in equities, predict wars or pandemics at the highest level, is Palantir able to leverage that? Or is it so privacy focused that it has to throttle back a bit, limit the artificial intelligence, if you will? So Shyam responded, and he said, of course, they are very privacy focused. Ever since the founding of the company, he said it's not just about how we prevent terrorism, it's how we prevent the reaction to terrorists. I believe that's what he said. He said there's a deprivation of civil liberties and privacy as a result of and consequence of attacks when they are successful. And so that philosophy and culture really embodies everything they do. He brought up the work they've done with the NHS, the advanced purpose-based access control, where it's not just row and column based security or even by the data set, but you're actually able to govern the AI models and the data that goes into them. He gave an example saying what's the allowable and consented use of medical data, for instance. Is the patient allowing for this use? So he said there's a very strong governance framework in everything Palantir does. But directly answering my question, and again, this is something you guys have asked before, can Palantir use other companies' data and then determine if they want to invest in companies? And he said it's really important to know that they don't have the data. They're a data processor. That's what they do. They process the data. They're not storing it. It's the customer's data. The customer owns the keys, he said, which I think is a very, very powerful idea. And the customer is only using Palantir to process their data for insights and operations. And that is really important. Palantir has no ability to aggregate and see across customers. And that's because of their privacy focus. They don't want to expose themselves and even allow themselves to do that. Palantir's trying to enable institutions to win, to see around corners, and as they've said so often, anticipate and react to shocks that the business may encounter, and then respond respond successfully. So I thought that was a wonderful response. Again, Palantir processes the data, doesn't store it, it can't leverage it for its own use, so there's nothing nefarious going on. But again, I thought that was a very important question to get answered, and I feel like maybe some people still have that misconception. So I'll leave it here for now. I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Again, I have 2 more parts coming, but what did you think about these questions? What did you think, more importantly, about the answers to them? We heard from Shyam and David in response to these questions. How do you think they responded? How did they do? And please, please like and share the video. I want more people to have answers to these questions. And of course, huge thanks to all of you watching and supporting. I don't have a Patreon, I don't do memberships anymore. It's really just you watching the channel, and I want it to be a free public service for what I do. So without you, I wouldn't have had this opportunity to speak with the Palantir management team, which was, again, of course, amazing. So thank you so much. I can't wait to share the rest of it with you. Until next time.